Thank you very much for the introduction, Sherelle. It's the transactional dementia intelligence model. It's a business model, the first one in the world, business model of dementia care that I created. It's especially of interest to any administrator of long term care, assisted living, even home health care as well. I'll speak a little bit about that at the end of my presentation. She did mention, Cheryl, you did mention I wanted to cover 3 steps in delivering superior dementia care. And I'll just summarize them now, and I'll be touching on all 3 of them. The first one is truly to be, if you become a caregiver, please get as much education early as possible. It's as important as an early diagnosis. That way you have tools in your toolbox to work in that area. Otherwise, it's very dangerous to have an empty toolbox or to only have a hammer in your toolbox. So the second thing is to trust your feelings. I will touch on feelings that few people touch on in this presentation. It's really about anger and frustration of caregivers. It's a real thing, and we need to acknowledge our feelings. Then we can deal with them. Without acknowledging those feelings, we don't deal well, period. And the third thing is I will talk about the new model of dementia care. It's a business model called the transactional dementia intelligence model. So to start with, get as much education as you can, as I say, because you need to learn how to best care for that person that you're providing care, whether it's a family member or friend. And it doesn't matter if it's a wife, husband, it's all, in the end, it's all the same. So there are qualities that you want to have developed. If not, you want to work on them at least. And I'll name them briefly. For example, to have some patience, to be able to have some compassion and empathy for the other person. And let me tell you, there's good research that shows that when you become a caregiver, your level of empathy increases dramatically. So if you're not empathic, you will be at the beginning, you will be at the end. That's for sure. You also have to have the ability to listen, because people with dementia access their right brain, not their left brain. In the right brain, it's all about emotions and feelings. And so if you're not able to listen carefully to what those emotions might be, the unmet need that you need to discover, you're going to not be able to communicate. There'll be a break in communication. And that's when frustration sets in for both the caregiver and the care receiver. And that's something to avoid, because as it escalates, it can become physical, and we don't want that. Also, you have to develop skills in problem solving. There'll be all kinds of problems on a daily basis, and how do you deal with those problems? And one of the ways to, when you don't have an answer, is to simply say that if you don't have the answer, look for some advice, look for support. Look for a support group. Share your situation so you can maybe find a better solution for your problem. There are problems every day. And you also have to have the willingness to learn. Nobody knows everything. So it's really important to learn as you go. It's almost like learning on the job if you were working for an organization. There's no difference there. So you're learning as you go. You have to have also some flexibility. People talk about principles and ethics and so on, and sometimes those qualities can actually choke you. You want to absolutely stay flexible, especially in dementia care. And you have to be trustworthy, because what you say and what you do has to match. And you have to be creative. I also say that you have to be a good actor. You have to improvise every day. Are you a good improviser? Something happens. Person tells you it's Easter tomorrow when it actually is maybe Christmas, And you have to be creative. What are you going to do with that information? You go with it first. I always say go with it first. And then after that, the person relaxes, and then you can say something else. And you also have to be service minded. We heard just a speaker, Dr. Beal, that and also the couple before that talk about service minded. You have to want to be a giver, not so much a receiver. The person you're serving is the receiver. And so in dementia care, the qualities I just mentioned to you are very important, and you're going to touch on everyone. If you don't have those qualities, you might develop them. If you don't develop them, it's okay. Give yourself a passing grade on that. I want you to know, though, that statistics show that about 33% of family caregivers are actually men. So that's a third. A third are men, and 2/3 are women. And 54% of family caregivers, both men and women, tend to put off any medical concern they may have for their health. They put that off. And that's the most dangerous thing to do, because it all catches up with you in the end. You will develop some sickness, maybe diabetes, heart trouble. It's very serious. So 54%, that's over half of the family caregivers, simply either forget or put secondary their own health. So a checkup every year, every 6 months is really important. You'll be able to talk to someone and take your vitamins. Vitamins are really important to support your body because there's so much stress. About 65% of family caregivers will miss work. If they're working full-time, they'll miss work, or they'll actually eventually quit their job, losing their retirement, losing their work, their paycheck even, to stay home full-time, because it's that demanding. It becomes a job that requires 24/7. So that's a lot. So that leads me into burnout or fatigue. Caregiver fatigue is absolutely real. I can't insist on that enough. Absolutely real. So if you see yourself starting to withdraw from friends or social events that you normally would have liked before, that's number one. You want to pay attention to that. If you have feelings of being tired, even after you sleep all night, or you may be disturbed in the night if you have a 24/7 shift, as I did for 21 years, you do feel tired all the time. Being tired like that, you may end up depressed. You want to pay attention to depression. There are things you can do, and also medications that might help you. And you may find yourself to be resentful. That's completely normal, isn't it? With all that I just said, you might be resentful because other people are doing things, even your family members, but you are really stuck. You feel stuck. And therefore, you feel guilty because you know you want to help your loved one or that friend, but then you start to feel guilty. And then you're getting easily agitated. You find that any little thing is bothering you that never bothered you before. You get what they call in English short fused. And when you notice that, you have to slow down and look back and see what is really driving that. That's one sign of the fatigue. And then you may lose or gain weight. In my case, I had gained weight. I've lost my weight now. And I felt extremely isolated. And that's another, I hear that every day from caregivers. Isolation is absolutely the worst. I felt so isolated. I'll give you an example of how I dealt with that. I would pick up the phone and I would call simply any 800 number just to hear a voice. And it didn't matter what they were offering. I would just hear that voice, that recording, and I felt a little bit better. I felt like I wasn't completely alone. So you have to acknowledge any of those symptoms and attribute it to the fatigue timeline. Very, very important. At the end of the timeline, you either burn out, you get very sick, or you could actually die. Over 20% to 30% of family caregivers die before their loved one. So it's serious business. Please stay in touch with that. Stay informed. Talk to someone. Visit your doctor regularly. Join a support group so you can express yourself. You won't feel so isolated. You won't feel you're keeping everything to yourself. And just do some activities as we heard yesterday, and we'll likely hear again today. If you like comedy, go see somebody that does comedy, or call somebody that really makes you laugh. That's important. Those kinds of things. It's called self-care. We heard a little bit about that this morning with our first presenter. So that's the second part the first part that I said I was going to talk to you about, which is educating yourself. That's part of your education. Okay, now I want you to trust your feelings. That's really important, because when we feel something, either we feel it through intuition or we literally feel it. Acknowledge that and accept that for yourself, because you're human and you're going to have feelings, and that's very important. We know that there are millions, over half, 54 or 53, 54 million Americans are caregivers, and about a third of these people spend 20 hours or more a week providing caregiving to someone else, which is very demanding for them. And if they continue to do that, eventually they go full time. So I wanted to talk about anger and frustration, because it's a real thing for family caregivers, and it's a natural thing. Forgive yourself, please, if you find yourself that you have unmet needs, just like the person you're taking care of, and you can get angry and frustrated. What I did with that, I just simply would retire to my bathroom, put the fan on so it was loud, and my husband couldn't hear me scream. And I would simply scream. That's the wonderful way to release it. So, because the stress of family caregiving 24/7 is truly monumental, and it never stops. You get up in the morning tired, and you go to bed tired, and many times you're alone with that. You're alone with the person you provide care for, and you're alone because people tend to stay away from you. They're afraid of being asked to help. So anger and frustration is a real feeling, and you're entitled to have it. You deserve it. So my husband lived with vascular dementia for 21 years after diagnosis. He was sick before that, but 21 years of really being his caregiver. So I was his caregiver. He was my teacher, because only the care receiver in dementia care is truly the expert. I'm not an expert. I was there to learn from him, and I paid close attention to what he was teaching me. And I want to tell you that a lot of people that I have spoken to truly admit that they do not love the person they care for. Either they've been abused by them when they were younger, something has happened. Let me tell you what I usually advise them to do, is to recognize that they were hurt by the actions of the other person. However, this is the time to resolve this before the end of life. So if you take it seriously, you have a chance to resolve that, and it's no longer a burden on your heart and your soul. So that's important to do. And the first year is usually your most chaotic year. of caregiving because it's so new. And let me tell you that 20, 25 years ago, we didn't have the resources we have today. Today, there's so many books. There's this program here. There's support groups that are very active. We had a speaker yesterday, caregiver Dave, that's extremely positive, and that kind of interaction and meeting with you is just uplifting. I mean, what a wonderful thing to do now. But in 20, 25 years ago, there was nothing. It was very hard to find help and find good ideas. And that's when I started to do research. And as a result, I created the International Caregivers Association to help to support people anywhere in society. I wanted people to know more and not to feel as isolated as I did. So we know that, to return to my subject, is that long-term caregiver stress is really tied up to health issues. You want to be very careful because physical effects of stress is horrible. There's also a mental effect on you, and maybe even a spiritual one. Some people will give up, and so we don't want that to happen. I want you to get more education, more support, especially that will help you. And there's no danger then. You're not alone. The worst thing is to be alone because you only have so many solutions to problems, and other people may bring something that's really exciting to you, makes sense, and is valuable. So when I was taking care of my husband for 21 years, I paid very close attention to what was going on and what kind of services were available to him, especially after he went into assisted living, because we lived in the country and he was getting depressed. And his doctor said, you need to put him where there's more people. So I put him in assisted living where he became very much happier. And but I watched everything. I watched the services they were giving. And then he went into skilled nursing. And I watched all that as well. And what I discovered is that people are still being warehoused in those long-term care facilities, most of them, not all of them, but most of them. And that was not acceptable to me. And so I began to think, how can I change that? How can I bring some new ideas in that field or that industry that would help my husband at the time and will help others in the future? So at the time, here I was all by myself. I developed this program, this model, and I applied it myself in 3 different facilities. And I noticed the difference. It was very important to pay attention to details in that case. And my computer went off. I don't know if you still hear me. So I developed a program called the Transactional Dementia Intelligence. Yes, here I am. Okay, I'm sorry, I lost the picture for a moment. And so here I'm back. And I called it the Transactional Dementia Intelligence because I noticed that there was no understanding or communication between the care provider and my husband and other residents. And I thought that was really odd. I didn't know how they could really pay attention to that population if they didn't have communication. So let me tell you a little bit about the Transactional Dementia Intelligence. From an organizational structure to frontline interactions, that the Transactional Dementia Intelligence propagates dignity, relationship, and human potential. This benefits care providers and recipients equally. Early adopters are already seeing game-changing outcomes. So how does it work? The Transactional Dementia Intelligence trains all staff in specialized expertise on supporting those with dementia. That's from the owner or administrator down to the janitors. Everybody gets training. This imparts the dementia intelligence of the program, how to engage creatively as logic fades and intuition flourishes. Caregivers learn to validate emotions, redirect behaviors compassionately, and foster meaningful bonds within each interaction and transaction. The use of the term transactional indicates that for the first time, dementia patients are truly listened to and can respond to using a dialect caregivers and patient both understand. So the magic lies in a pioneering new role, the dementia coach. This supervisor oversees organizational wide adoption of the transactional dementia intelligence, provides ongoing training and support to everyone in the organization, including family caregivers, and ensures protocol compliance. Revenue previously leaked via staff turnover is reinvested into everlasting care practices. So it's a very attractive program for anyone who is in the business of dementia care. And if you want more information about that in more detail, you can go to the International Caregivers with an S association.com. You can also contact me at lordethel@gmail.com or through the website. So please do not hesitate. It's really important that we change the course of dementia care based on all my experience and what I know and what I have written about. I can tell you this is truly a model that needs to replace the obsolete model that we're using now. It's inhumane and we need to change it. I need your support. So if in your country, your town, you need some changes, please contact the International Caregivers Association and help. We'll need your help because we can't do it alone. Everybody has to help with this. Thank you very much for this program. Thank you, Sherelle.